Hey, this is Dr. Amanda with Straight Smile Solutions, and today we're going to talk about arch wire sequence and how to efficiently do a straight wire case with hopefully 5 or less arch wires. And I'm going to kind of take you through my sequence. I do this with my clients all the time, and if you want to chat more, you can go to straightsmilesolutions.com or https theorthowhisperer.com to schedule a phone call, and we'll be glad to talk to you. It's totally free. So let me take you through what I've figured out to be a very kind of efficient system and how I do it. Working my way through the wires, trying to be as economical as possible. And if you want to get this system in writing, I do have it on my blog page, which is at straightsmilesolutions.com. If you can't find it, you can email me, info@straightsmilesolutions.com, and I'll be glad to send it to you. And again, that's totally free. All right, so here is my sequence basically. So my goal is to do a case in less than or equal, if possible, to 5 wires. That doesn't always happen. There is no cookie cutter approach, okay? Every patient is gonna be a little bit different. A lot of times doctors ask me to give a wire sequence at the beginning of the case, and I can kind of estimate it, but things can be unpredictable. And every patient moves differently and at different rates, and it really also depends on patient compliance. So let's go ahead, and I might use my hand to show you some stuff. So let's talk initially first about something that's kind of really important, and I think that's 2 mistakes I see doctors make a lot. Number 1 is arch wire, the width or the arch form, okay? So you can see here, this is a wire by TP Orthodontics. This is what they call, so there's all kinds of different names. They call this a standard arch form, okay? But other companies wouldn't call this standard. Other companies would call something like this standard. So you can't go by the name. Just because it's standard doesn't mean you can use standard with any company. You need to pick a company and stay with the company for your arch, for all your wires, I would, because you can't be mix matching different arch forms. Also, another mistake I see people making is that they use, and a lot of classes that supposedly teach this, they use the same wire for upper and lower. I 100% disagree with that. I would never do that. Now, in the 12 NiTi phase and maybe the 14 NiTi phase, it probably doesn't matter too much. But as you move on through your arch wire sequence, it matters a heck of a lot, and you're going to mess up your case. So I just wouldn't try, don't be cheap. Don't do that. Make sure you have upper and lower for every case. And in a pinch, you can use, flip-flop it, but you're gonna forget. That's the problem. So better to just keep it standard, okay? So in general, I don't use this kind of arch shape at all, okay? Which is why I still have them floating around. This isn't something I use. I mean, maybe in an adult that was an extraction case that had that kind of very V-shaped arch form, I will, but that's a very much a one-off, and that's not something, patients don't like that kind of arch form. It's kind of ugly, so it's very old-fashioned, so we'll get rid of that. All right, so in general, this is the kind of U-shaped arch form I like to use, and it's just something right now that's very aesthetic. It's what patients want. Now, some patients, again, if you're working on perio patients, first of all, if you're working on perio patients, I don't even like to do brackets and wires. I like to do aligners. So, I mean, this is why I feel very comfortable only stocking this kind of shape arch form. And you can buy this arch form from any wire company. I just happen to have that from that brand, and then the tapered ones from TP. Just a little bit also about wires. Kind of cool. So TP Orthodontics is one of my favorite vendors. They have created what I call the starter box for my clients. I mean, you don't have to be my client to get it, but if you want to, it's a really good deal. It's a big discount. Even more if you take our hands-on class, which, by the way, quick shameless plug, is May 8th and 9th, 2020. If you're interested, email me, info@straightsmilesolutions.com, and I will send you an invitation. Right now, we do have early bird discounts. But anyways, big discount if you go to that. But basic wire sequences, things for you to know. Back to TP Orthodontics. Yes, they have a starter box, huge discounts. And what I love about it is that I've worked with them to create this box. I don't get any profit off this, just to let you know. I wish I did, but don't. So go ahead and buy it. It doesn't help me. I just think it's great and I like it, so I tell people about it. But it's a good price, and we've really weeded out all the BS that people tell you to buy when you start straight wire. It's only what you'll need. I don't think you'll ever need anything else that's not in the box. So, and I think we've got it down, not with the pliers, taking the pliers out, just with the consumables like wires and ties and springs and stuff and elastics. you've got it down to about 1,000, which is quite reasonable. And that should last you like 50, 60, 70 cases. I mean, this will last you a very, very, very long time. Well, maybe not with the wires because I don't know how many they give you, but very long time at the very least. Okay, so let's go into the wire sequence again. And again, like I said, I do have this pretty much written down in a blog. Email me if you want it. Most of my patients are going to start at a 14 or a 16 NiTi, okay? Very, very, very rarely do I start at a 12 NiTi. That would be like really, really funky, crowded, high canines, just like super jacked up kind. That's like very, very small percentage of patients. If you put a 12 NiTi in just kind of a regular, mild to moderate to severe crowding patient, it's not going to do anything. So it's just kind of a waste of a wire. It's a good starter wire. So the goal is to put in the biggest wire that you can engage fully in all the brackets. That's the one off, and that's where I see doctors making the biggest mistake, is that they will not fully engage it in the slot. It's just kind of half in the slot. Well, that's not going to do anything. So you have to fully engage it. If you try to fully engage an arch wire that's too heavy, that the patient's not ready for yet, you will break the bracket. Or the bracket will break when the patient goes home and they'll be mad at you. So it's a bit of just an experience. And again, this is something we train our doctors to do. We can tell you which wire to put in and when. So, and each patient is unique. So anyways, most of my patients are going to start with 14 or 16. If they're only mild crowding and maybe or a spacing case, they're going to start with 16. They might even start with 18 if I can get away with it. But usually 16 or 14, very rarely 12, okay? So let's say we started with 14, kind of typical. 14 NiTi upper and lower is going to stay in for a few months. It's going to stay in until that wire is 100% passive. That means it's not deflected at all. Once that wire is kind of done doing its job, then we're going to move up. If possible, I'm going to move up to 18, from 14 to 18. But if I don't think I can do that, then I'm going to move from 14 to 16 to 18. Okay? So anyways, you might do 1 or 2 reties in between. Usually I'm going to recall them initially every 6 to 8 weeks. It could even be 8 to 10 weeks. If you're using self-ligating brackets, you can do 10 to 12 weeks. Wire might get pokey. The little rubber ties get gross after a while. So you have to change them, and that's what people think of as tightening, okay? So again, you're going to stay in that wire until it's completely passive. Then you're going to move up to the next wire sequence. These are round wires. Your 12, 14, 16, 18 are round, right? And then after that, there's rectangular wires. Once I finish with my 18 NiTi, and again, this might take 2 or 3 months to get there. It might take 7 months to get there. It depends on how crooked the patient is and what the patient has going on. Then I stop. I stop and I reevaluate bracket position. My goal is not to pass that phase until I am 100% thrilled with all the bracket positions. Like every single tooth is 100% perfect straight, and I'm also happy with the leveling. So we've got, first order bends, second order bends, third order bends. So basically in those round wires, what we're doing is we're working on making teeth straight. We're also making sure that everything is level and symmetrical. So that means tooth number 8 and 9 should be the same height, 7 and 10 should be the same height. You get the idea, right? 6 and 11 should be the same height. Your premolars should be the same height, etc. So crookedness and level should be good. And of course, your lower anteriors should all be the same height. So at that stage, at the 18 NiTi, if something is off, you can go ahead and do a rebracket. Now, if you've used indirect bonding, which is what I always recommend for your first couple hundred cases at least, for a general dentist, because it'll save you so much time and so much money. I mean, yes, you're going to spend about $300, $350 for the brackets and the trays, but you'd be spending $150 for the brackets anyway. So what's $150 more to save you probably an average of 4 to 6 months on a case and a lot of chair time? It's a no-brainer to do indirect bonding. And if you want to know where I recommend, you can contact me. I have a lot of companies I recommend. Again, I do not get kickbacks from that. So, all right. So again, 18, we're going to be happy. And not only am I happy, I'm also going to loop the patient in on it. Because this is where I don't want to hear at the end when I'm all done and I think I'm done, hey, we're ready to get them off. And they're like, I don't really like the way these teeth look. Because if there's some like fine art into bracket placement and smile design. And there's not always one way or the highway kind of thing. Like some patients want their canines more up, some patients want their canines more down. Yes, you can file them. Some patients want less of a step up on their laterals and their centrals, that kind of little stuff. And this is where we want the patient to feel like they have control. Now, sometimes it's unreasonable, so you have to kind of explain why certain things are a certain way. But if you let the patient, and if it's a child, or if the parent is paying for it, and the parent weigh in at this stage, your case will go way smoother. So, because they feel like they have full control. I like to call it a Hollywooding appointment. Are you guys, go home, take a few weeks, talk to your family. How do you feel about how straight things are? Now, at this stage, we're only working on the initial order bends. We're not working on bite. We're not working on closing space yet. And as a matter of fact, in the round wires, spaces actually might get bigger. And that's fine. You need to let the patient know. If it's a huge problem and they're getting like crazy, huge diastemas in these stages, which they might, you can always put a little power chain on the front teeth. I only go from mesial to mesial. It's real light because you're on the round wire. It's just going to dump right back. But it's more of just like a patient management issue. It's not really that functional, but I do that just to keep the patient happy. But otherwise, I'm not doing power chain in round wires, and I'm not using elastics. I'll use elastics sometimes in round wires, but only box elastics or triangle elastics, and I've got tons of videos on that, but not class 2, class 3 elastics, Okay, so now once we finish that stage of the 18 NiTi, we are moving on to the rectangular wires, okay? Generally, I don't even use 1625. I'll go straight up to 1725. And remember, it depends on what your bracket prescription is. If you're using 022 slot or if you're using 018 slot. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about mini twin brackets. I'm not talking about tip edge or any of these other stuff. I don't even have that much experience with those. I only work with really mini twin. So it's just so much easier. And I think people get way too in the weeds with stuff. And you can make straight wire very, very, very simple if you think of it this way. Okay, so now we're in our 1725 NiTi, which is basically, let's see, do we have one here? That's 1825, but okay. But I told you I don't like this arch form. But, it's a thicker NiTi. You can put it in. That's when I'm going to start doing my chain. Everyone's chain is different. You're not always going to chain from molar to molar. Sometimes it's strategic how you're going to do things. And that's when I'm going to do class 2, class 3 elastics if needed. Okay, and we're going to stay in that. Might move up to 1825, but we're going to stay in that until that part of the system is done, which is closing all the space and getting the bite right. Now, at the very end, once I've done all that, you should have your spaces closed. You should have a good AP bite. You should have all your teeth straight and all your teeth level. So you should be like 98% done. You might be 100% done. Then you get to take them off. So that was 4 to 5 wires, like I said. The biggest mistake that doctors make is that they start working on bite too fast, or they start closing space too fast, or they don't do their repose early enough when you're supposed to do it and all at one time. So they're constantly cycling back and forth, because if you get into the heavier wires and then you need to reposition a bracket, guess what? You're going back to the light wires again, which is a waste of money and a waste of time for the patient and for you. So you have to do things in a sequence. So let's say we're done with our wire sequence and all that stuff is done, but things still aren't perfect. So a couple of things that I do at the very, very, very end would be if the bite is still a little too open or the bite is still a little bit too deep, I might use something called a reverse curve wire or an accentuated curve wire. And I've got videos on that. It is magical, but it works very fast and you need to keep a very close eye on your patient. So we talked earlier about how normally I see patients initially every maybe 6 to 12 weeks, depending on what type of bracket they're in. Towards the end, when I'm in quote unquote finishing stages, it might be every 2 to 3 weeks or even less, because things happen very, very fast. And when things are done, they're done. So you need to be prepared to take the braces off when it's perfect. Don't wait, because it might overcorrect. So we talked about reverse curve wires, accentuated curve wires. Another thing that you might do at the very end is you might go into stainless steel wires or beta titanium wires. Either way, they both work the same. Well, pretty much the same. I'd go into those if I needed to work on the arch form. Now, normally speaking, if you did things correctly, picked a good case selection, in kids, I'll fix transverse issues with an expander first. I don't try to do it in wires because I want to move it bodily, not just tipping. But if I made a mistake and it looks like one arch is still too narrow relative to the other, then I will fix that in a steel wire. But that's a big time one-off because I should have caught that earlier. So that's a real one-off. The other thing is I don't do wire bending anymore. It's very, 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 very rare. I know how to do it. I don't like doing it. And I don't recommend even, I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of these classes do is they give these pop pliers to make bends, and that these general dentists don't know how to do it. You're going to overdo it. You're going to underdo it. You're going to put a little twist in it. The tooth is going to just fix it in the bracket. Fix it in the bracket. It's just way easier to fix it in the round wire and fix it in the bracket, and you don't have to worry about that. Again, some of these courses make it so difficult because they want you to become like addicted to how they do things. And these cases should be done. You should be done with your straight wire cases in 18 months or less. These should not be taking more than 18 months. If so, you're probably doing things wrong and inefficiently. So, you just got to be strategic in how you plan things. So anyways, and then lastly, the only other thing that could probably happen, I mean, all your cases, if you do things like this, should be pretty smooth. The only other thing that could happen, and you really need to deal with patient management and control, is breakage, okay? So you need to be crystal clear. Obviously, you need to give a food list, having an agreement on breakage at the front end, how it works, what's going to happen if things break, what the fees might be is a smart idea. If patients are continuously breaking brackets, you're going to have to, and if they don't catch it immediately, you're going to have to go back to the light wires, and it takes another couple months for every bracket that's broken. Patient needs to be paying for that, after 1, 2, 3, for sure. Not only for the cost of the bracket, but the additional time in treatment, unless they're catching it immediately and coming in. And when they come in with broken brackets, they don't need to be coming in at your high time. They need to be coming in at your off time, because it is an inconvenience for you unless you're billing for it. So it's a bit of an art of patient management. Obviously, there's a lot of foods that can't be eaten, and that's how you eat them too. And with kids, I mean, this stuff happens. It's just part of it. You just have to learn how to talk to the kid, talk to the parent. You need to manage expectations. At the beginning of treatment, you need to go over the rules. I'm pretty good if you show me a picture and explain a scenario to let you know if that broken bracket is due to something the patient did or something that you did. So basically, this is kind of the way I can tell. First of all, you can take a picture and I can see where the breakage occurred, how the bite is. Also, if the breakage occurred, did the adhesive stay on the bracket? Did it stay on the tooth? Where is it? That tells me a lot. So a lot of times my clients will send pictures and I'll tell you the truth of what really happened. Because we don't want to be blaming the patient if it was your fault, So if the patient has a deep bite and is biting on brackets, well, then you shouldn't be either not putting on the lower brackets yet, or you should be putting on bite turbos, front or back, or you should be putting on a bite plate. So patients shouldn't be biting on the brackets. That means you're doing something wrong. Number 2, if you're not using your etching, isolating correctly, using contaminated systems, then things are going to break. I always recommend that doctors use a traditional bracket bonding system. Don't try the lollipops or the all-in-one primers. They're very technique sensitive. Don't start there. And unless you're doing it perfect, it will break. So these are just really, this is probably my favorite. There's nothing wrong with this. But this is the one that I have the most experience with. Would be your regular BandLock, Transbond, the one by Reliance. Reliance has the best bonding stuff. Remember that if it's a porcelain crown, things may not stay on well, and you have to buy a complete separate porcelain etch bonding system. It still might not stay. You may have to break the glaze on the crown. So a lot of times with patients with a lot of crowns, it's better to just do aligners. It's just going to be a headache. But obviously the patient you need to be super well isolated. I have tons of videos and blogs on this, so just message me if you want to get those. It's a whole nother story. But usually this is my standard scripting for breakage, which is if the breakage was due to an issue on how we bonded it, an error on our part, it's going to break pretty much either at the appointment or immediately following the appointment. That means when you get home or that first night, any breakage that occurs within the first 24 hours, that's on us. I mean, it might be their fault, but we're just going to say that's on us. We will accommodate you to the best of our abilities to get that fixed. We're very sorry. Sometimes these things happen. It is a complex biochemical, mechanical process to get brackets on. Things can happen, right? Again, you need to really think about your isolation, your technique if these things are happening over and over again. Also the bite, are you being too aggressive with the wire? There's a lot of things that can be happening before you start pointing fingers at the patient. But if things are breaking after that 24-hour window, that's when it's on the patient for the most part. And remember, sometimes breakage can occur not at the time that the patient ate. So you'll hear a lot of times they're like, well, it broke, when I wasn't eating, or it broke overnight. Well, that doesn't mean that's when it broke. It could have just been loosened because they ate something earlier. So the actual breakage might occur later, but the act of the breakage might have occurred earlier, starting it. So that really doesn't correlate. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Everything about wire sequence, bonding, breakage, manage your patients. Aligners are great. I still love aligners as much as possible in adults and teens. Sorry, but they're really easy. I'm really great with teaching compliance, managing expectations. I really don't have any problems. If the same problems you're going to have in a braces patient as an aligner patient, because if they're non-compliant, they're going to be breaking brackets, they're going to have poor hygiene, and they're not going to be wearing their elastics. So you're still going to have a bad outcome. So I'd rather do aligners and have a lot less risk, pain, office visits. And if they're really still not compliant, then we need to discontinue. Take a braces vacation or an aligner vacation, and they can start again later. But the vast majority of teens and adults are awesome. And that really should be a major one-off in your practice. And it's all about case selection, picking the right case, and also patient selection, picking the right patient to partner with. If you're getting that vibe that they're just not going to be a great patient partner, then don't see them. Either don't treat them or refer them to someone else. You don't have to take every patient that walks in your office. All right, that was a ton of information. So feel free, check out our other YouTube videos, blogs, all that. You want to schedule a one-on-one, you can go to straightsmilesolutions.com or https://theorthowhisperer.com. Come to our hands-on class, which will be twice a year. So next one will be May 8th and 9th, 2020 in Phoenix, Arizona. Glad to send you a link. It's very affordable. We also have live patient demos. It's in an actual office. So there's really nothing like it out there. Myself and Dr. Rishi Popat designed this just for pediatric dentists and general dentists who want to get the most out of their hands-on experience. All right, thanks so much. Hope to talk to you soon.